All right, welcome to Fourth and Goal, presented by Fourth Down Magazine. There, I got it right.
You did it.
I've been struggling with that for 3 weeks. We've got 4 weeks of the high school football season in the books in the state of Pennsylvania, along with former coach, but he will always be the coach, Bart Miller. I'm Andy Shay, and let's talk about a few things, Coach. Let's go back to Week 4. Let's take a look at a couple things that stood out to Week 4. First of all, we're going to talk about the game of the week a little bit later. Harrisburg being Harrisburg, sometimes the old saying goes, nobody beats Harrisburg like Harrisburg. And that certainly was true at Chapman Field Friday night at Cumberland Valley. The Cougars did so much right for 3 quarters to claim a victory against Cumberland Valley, but when you let that program hang around, you're going to lose, and they did. It was 28-7 the Eagles. But let's throw a couple scores out to you, Coach. A couple things stood out to me. This score was State College 37, Carlisle 8.
Okay.
Which side of that gave you more pause for the cause looking back at it from Week 4?
You know, we were all very, very excited about what Carlisle was bringing to the table this year.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we all had high expectations and hopes for that program, for them to get off the ground and finally make their move. And they get up there and State College puts a whooping on them.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, it was a lopsided game. The State College side stands out a little bit more to me because I think I'm almost about this close to saying they might be the team to beat in the Commonwealth Division. They've been rock solid on both sides of the ball all year. They've got a running game, which they absolutely love because they can use the big guys on their offensive line. I think the State College side of the fact that it was so convincing again for them, that stands out to me more than anything. How about this one? Which side of this game kind of stands out more for you, Coach? On this score, it'll be Redland 41, Hershey 9. Does that say Redland may be better than we thought? Hershey maybe not as good? Which
That's
side of
That's a
the...
great question. I'm really looking forward to asking Coach Weaver that when we get together.
No, we don't. We got to answer that.
Oh, we got to answer that now.
Yeah. See, there goes his arms. That means he's pissed at me.
No, I tell you, I'm impressed with Redland so far. You know, I think the amount of points they put on the board this week was impressive. You know, they've been plodding around, going between the tackles, very north and south, getting what they needed to win.
Right.
This week they got a little carried away.
I think I'm going to agree with you. I think the 41 stands out to me more than the Hershey 9 because I think we know what Hershey's problems are. But I think if Redland scoring 41 points in Week 4 says that their execution and their cohesiveness is kind of moving up the chart. Couple more before we get out, Coach. The CD East getting a win against Mifflin County. It took a little bit of time, but that was a quality win for them. Lower Dauphin continues to roll 30-15. They were impressive in every phase of the game against Susquenita Township. How about East Pennsboro? Panthers are undefeated. They're 4-0. They're running the ball. Which side? What do you think about East Pennsboro? I think it's them and Greencastle in that division.
I agree.
Colonial Division.
I agree. East Pennsboro is making the most of their opportunities right now too. I mean, they're making making hay while the sun shines.
That's a good point.
They're winning the games they should be winning early on in the season, and they're doing it in a convincing fashion.
Right.
No question about it. But when you look at the teams they've played combined, how many wins do they have?
I think it's 3.
3 wins. So again, hey. Kudos to East Penn.
You have to beat what's in front of you.
That's right.
Yeah, I think right now what they're doing defensively tells me a little bit more about where they're going than where they've been and who they're playing. It's been hard to score points against them. We'll find out a little bit down the road.
Forward.
Yeah, we're going to find a little bit more about moving forward. So that's a wrap on Week 4. Taking a look back. All right, welcome back to Fourth and Goal, presented by Fourth Down Magazine. Let's take a little peek into a couple. We got a player. We're going to each pick a player that kind of stood out to us from Week 4. But before we do that, let's talk about Camp Hill. Now, everyone, Lions are 4-0. They're scoring points. I don't think there's anybody in the Mid-Penn Conference that has scored more points than the Lions through the first month of the high school football season. They're just simply killing cats. But their schedule might be a little bit suspect. What do you think of Camp Hill going forward?
I think we're going to find out what they're made of. I mean, I think the games are going to get progressively tougher as they go through. They're going to get more teams that have the athletes that are going to match up with their guys.
Right.
And like typical years in the past, if Camp Hill gets a kid nicked up front,
yeah, that's a good point.
It's going to make a big difference.
Right.
Going forward. So
yeah, they've played Upper Dauphin, Halifax, James Buchanan, and West Perry. Clearly 4 teams that are obviously struggling. I think between them they have a combined 2 wins. They haven't played Milton Hershey. They haven't played Boiling Springs. They haven't played Steel High. But it looks like they've prepped themselves through this 4-game stretch by putting a ton of points on the board and getting their offense in sync. So how about player of the week? There's a lot of guys to choose from. Not player of the week. Let's say the one player that jumped out to you from week 4.
I'm on the John Vaughn bandwagon.
The wrestler.
Yeah.
Vaughn had 30 carries for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. And I don't know, is a victory over Middletown for the Bubblers an upset or not an upset? But either way, Boiling Springs won the football game at Middletown.
That's right.
So,
which is a great venue, by the way. It's a great place to play.
I think the redo messed it up.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I love the seats in the end zone.
Yeah, you do lose something with the seats in the end zone, but that's. I still like it going in there on a Friday night.
I still like the neighborhood feel of the stadium. Yeah. I like where it's set. I like the veterans wall in the back. We can talk about stadiums all day long. I love the veterans, the veterans wall back there. But I love the seats in it. There's no high or low. It's now cookie cutter with equal bleachers. But it's more safe. It's more stable. It looks more modern. Everybody wants to look good now.
That's right.
But they lost a little bit of the luster. But I mean, you talked to the Boiling Springs coach,
I did.
During the week, and was he surprised that would he classify it as an upset in his mind?
Absolutely not. I ran into Coach Fryer on Saturday, strangely enough, at a field hockey tournament. I think he was recruiting.
Field hockey tournament.
He was out recruiting.
Does he have a daughter play field hockey?
No, he just happened to be at the school at the time. But through the conversation, he felt very confident they were going to be able to run the ball against Middletown.
Right.
Which is, again, I give all the props to John Bond for that. But he was not at all surprised by that.
Yeah, I think
he shouldn't be. Let's be honest.
I think you ride that horse and keep handing that kid the football. For me, the player that stood out was from CD East was a quarterback, Jihad Neibauer. There has been some struggle at that position. They've got 2 guys that have been playing that position, and Jihad Neibauer is their starter. He's their guy, but without the running back, he's clearly struggled this year. He threw for 227 yards, 3 touchdowns. Most importantly, he did not throw any interceptions against Mifflin County. I know Mifflin County's not the fastest team in the Commonwealth Division, but he needed a good outing to sort of solidify himself as the number 1 guy for East, because I think with that defense, and if they can pull it a little bit tighter on offense, I think they are a team to be contended with in the Commonwealth Division, but it all rides on the quarterback position. He's very, very, very important to them. Welcome back to 4th and Goal, brought to you by 4th Down Magazine. Coach Bart Miller, alongside I'm Andy Shay. Let's talk about the game of the week from week 4. Cougars, undefeated at 3-0, invaded Chapman Field in New Kingstown to take on the Cumberland Valley Eagles, who came in with a 2-1 record this night. Boy, I tell you what, Cumberland Valley comes out with a 28-7 victory, which by the score, if you just heard the score and I just told you the score, you think typical Cumberland Valley victory. But man, this was anything but.
Yeah, when you invade the evil empire over there.
Yeah, that's a good, I call it the Red Army, you call it the evil empire.
Bad things can happen to the visiting team.
Yeah.
They really can.
There has been a lot of bad things happen to Harrisburg, the Harrisburg Cougars on a Friday night over there. And it was the same thing again. I mean, Harrisburg literally was its own worst enemy. There's just no way you can beat Cumberland Valley, whether they're, at a 10 on the Richter scale in terms of being a playoff and district contender, or whether they're at a 5. You can't have 100 yards and penalties in the first half, or nearly 100 yards, turn the ball over, and expect to beat them. You simply can't do it.
Yeah, in typical Cumberland Valley fashion, really didn't come into play this week, though. Typically they keep the penalties down. They don't make their own mistakes, but they did make some this Friday night.
They had plenty of penalties. They had 3 personal foul penalties. They jumped off sides a couple times, and they scored first and went up 7-0. And you thought, yep, there they are. There's Cumberland Valley. They went right down the field, running the ball, and it was 7-0 less than 2 minutes into the game. But then their offense, which they've got a lot of issues and holes on that offense, but they went 4 straight possessions of 3 and out. They didn't even have 15 yards of offense the rest of the half. They went from the 10-minute mark of the first quarter till 6 minutes and 16 seconds of the third quarter without a first down. Without a first down.
I got to tell you, that tells me that Coach Cal and his staff put together, after that opening drive, they saw what Cumberland Valley was going to focus on and go down the field.
Exactly.
And they coached it up and they made the changes and things that they needed to do to slow it down.
That is exactly what they did. But when you go into the locker room at halftime, with the total yards being nearly 225 for Harrisburg, to 47 for Cumberland Valley.
Yeah.
The plays, Harrisburg ran 41 plays. Sorry to number you to death. They ran 41 plays in the first half. 29 of those snaps were in Cumberland Valley territory. Halftime score 7-7. Bad moon rising. Somebody asked me at halftime when I was at the stadium, I covered the game Friday night, they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, just go ahead and chalk up a win for CV. Because if you can't get hay when you do that to the Eagles, you're losing.
Yeah.
And here's what really killed Harrisburg, besides Harrisburg paper cutting itself to death with mistakes. They ended up with 15 penalties for 20-something yards. They had 3 penalties that were declined. So they actually had 18 flags thrown against them. They ended up with 3 turnovers. They take the second half kickoff and they go all the way down the field, get right inside the red zone. They got first and goal or second and goal at the 2. No, first and goal at the 2, excuse me. Michael Clark has to come out, the quarterback, because he loses his helmet on the running play that takes the ball down inside the 5. They bring their freshman quarterback in, first snap, missed handoff, fumble, Cumberland Valley recovers. And that literally was all she wrote. That started Cumberland Valley in a march down the field. They scored 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns, and they literally pulled away from Harrisburg. And in a game that was, it was very frustrating for Coach Cal. And he even said that he wanted to look at the film and question the officiating, but he wasn't going to do it without looking at the film. But I was impressed with Cumberland Valley's patience as a football team, from their coaching staff to the players. Even though they were getting outplayed and there was nothing hardly going right, there was not an iota of panic from that team.
That word does not exist in the Cumberland Valley playbook, and it hasn't since Coach Chapman was there. Coach Sanzato. Forever. That word does not exist. And you got to take Coach Whitehead, who, by the way, is very bright.
He's a smart guy.
I mean, he's been around the program forever.
Right.
People forget he was on a state championship staff when he was at Bishop McDevitt.
Bishop McDevitt, yep.
Growing up in that Cumberland Valley program, I'm sure he kept his cool. And I'm sure he made sure the sidelines kept their cool, and the kids believe in their coaches, they believe in the program, and panic's not going to happen.
I still do like Cumberland Valley's defense. I mean, they held McDevitt to 6 points. Here's the thing we can hit on too. In the last 8 quarters that they've played, they've given up 1 touchdown to Bishop McDevitt and 1 touchdown to Harrisburg. That's 2 touchdowns in 8 quarters against those 2 teams who have some pop on offense. Sure. I think we will both agree. So what does that tell you? That they've played 8 quarters against those teams, and they had a little help last week against Harrisburg, but still, they've given up 2 total touchdowns.
Right, and they got Connor Long back down the secondary. The kid's a player. He is a player. He covers. He hits you.
That's a good point.
They're rotating 7 guys through that defensive line.
Right
up front.
Yeah.
They're going to be solid. They're
the linebackers are rock solid.
They're going to play 4 quarters.
Their linebackers are rock solid. And the thing that stood out to me about their defense, that jumped out to me in this game Friday night, their secondary's a little quicker than you might think. Because there's never going to be a Cumberland Valley football team where you're going to say speed, Cumberland Valley. You're just not going to do it. Not while you and I are alive.
No.
You're just not going to say, hey, they got speed and lots of athleticism. But their secondary is a little bit quicker than you think. And that was a very, very good win for Cumberland Valley. It doesn't hurt Harrisburg to a degree. They're still 3-1. They had 3 good victories. But it was a bad way for them to lose a football game. I think they definitely took a step back because they got a lot of correcting to do. And it's not the execution, it's the mistakes. They cannot make that many mistakes. 9 snaps in the first half inside the red zone, and on 4 of those snaps they went backwards with penalties. When you get in there, opportunity, and they have a good kicker. So Cumberland Valley 28, that was the game of the week. Harrisburg 7. We learned a lot about both teams last Friday night. Let's talk about Boiling Springs, Coach.
Okay.
I mean, that was a really, really big victory for the Bubblers. They ran the ball against Middletown. And if nothing else, Middletown's been able to play good defense this year, except against Lower Dauphin, and we're going to discount that game because Lower Dauphin seems to be at a little bit different level in week 1 than...
I think we're chasing the Falcons.
Yeah, they were chasing. Yeah, and Lower Dauphin's, they're a better football team than I thought they were.
Yeah.
And even 4 weeks. But, I mean, this, I think, was probably as big a win, maybe the biggest win for Nate at Boiling Springs. I mean, it has not been easy for him there.
No.
He inherited a bit of a mess.
He did.
He inherited a bit of a mess, and he had to tiptoe through the tulips, I think, for a couple years as a new head coach coming into a system. You can talk about that.
Yeah, he kind of affirmed that to me on Saturday. He said, this year he's raised the bar a little bit for the kids. The expectations are a little bit higher. the off-season expectations, what he expects them to do in practice, the amount of physicality they're putting into practice.
Right.
He's definitely turned it up a few notches this year. And
why would he not come in and do that right away? Why don't you come in as a coach, taking over a program, becoming a head? Why don't you come in and put your stamp on it right away? Is that
you don't want to alienate the people that are already there, I think. And he took over for a program that had a modicum of success,
right?
Under Coach Heiser, and I don't know they necessarily left on bad terms either.
Right.
But it was time for a change, and Coach Heiser went down to Gettysburg, of course. But I think you just got to kind of feel the waters a little bit and see where your support is,
right?
And
feel where maybe the sinkholes are.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And try and step around them. So, and maybe that's what he did. He didn't talk to me about that at all. He just said that definitely this year the expectations and the bar's been raised. And
sounds like he took his time and found both of those. Once he found where they were and where his comfort spot was, he was able to change and make it more look like what he wants it to look like, rather than starting to
put a stamp on the program.
Starting to put a stamp on the program. I would say it's his biggest win. I mean, I know they had suspensions last year. Remember, they had an eligible player where they won a game and had to lose
to Big Spring.
To Big Spring in a wild second half comeback. So it was a rock solid victory, and there's no doubt about it that Boiling Springs is a running football team. Welcome back to 4th and Goal, presented by 4th Down Magazine, along with head coach Bart Miller. I'm just going to call you the coach, Bart Miller. Let's welcome in. We're welcoming Chad Weaver, head coach of Redland Patriots. Let's just say it. Redland's 4-0. Redland's 4-0. That was my one-liner for my pick last week. By the way, Redland's 4-0. Patriots are 4-0. The Patriots are 4-0. And the Patriots are 4-0, coming off in a very impressive 41-9 victory over a Hershey team that's sort of going a little bit through what we just talked about with Boiling Springs. A little new coach, a little new land to navigate. I'm learning a lot about this first-year coach and navigating the sort of new coach waters. But Coach's got some experience here. First question right out of the gate. I'm not going to lay up a softball at you, Coach. Are you guys any good? You guys are you a good? You know what a good football team? Are you guys good, or are you getting good?
I think we're each week improving.
You're getting good.
If you would have told me at the beginning of the year we were going to start 4-0, I would have thought maybe there's a chance. But each week it's been great, and kids keep improving.
All right, I go back to this now. Another easy question, but probably not. What from the end of, you go through preseason and you get ready for week 1. You do your scrimmages, you do 2 scrimmages, you go through your, heat acclimatization week, and then your couple weeks of camp. And then you get to your preparation for your first week of game, and you know what you've got. You know what you're working with. So you think back to before that, you knew what you had and what you're working with, and now what you look at after 4 weeks. What has stood out to you and has surprised you the most through the first month?
I really think our offensive line play has been phenomenal.
Better than you would have expected.
Yes. I think right now, we had 3 kids coming back that were returning starters. And
which were give me some names. We got to have some names. Let's have some names.
Zach Rollman, who's a tackle for us.
Sorry.
Drew Spiker, who's a center. And we also had another guard for us, Brandon Seitz. And all 3 of those we knew that were decent players.
Right.
And the other 2 were kind of the missing pieces that we were looking for a little bit. And so far, we found those pieces, and that's really helped us with our success. Meatloaf
said 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but over all my years of covering football, and you can agree or disagree with me, Coach, but when you have 3 out of your 5 interior offensive linemen, to me, that was always the magic number. Like, that was a rock-solid start. No matter what your holes were,
sure.
The 3 out of 5 was always the good number to start with. And I'll let you ask a couple questions in a minute, Coach. Okay. I'm sorry. The other question I wanted to ask you, Coach, I'm very curious about this. The last 2 years it was obvious to me that you guys had football talent. You had football talent. And I would argue that there isn't as much pure quote-unquote football talent on this team. But there is something about this group or this team that those 2 teams the last couple of years didn't have. Yeah. And can you talk about that a little bit?
I honestly think the biggest thing is the group of seniors we have this year is just amazing. They have worked harder than any of the other groups I've had.
Any team you've...
And in the 4 years I've been the head coach, they've been the hardest working group.
Right.
And we did, I know you talked a little bit about some of the off-season stuff, upping it a little bit. We certainly challenged them this past off-season, and that senior group really kind of took control of that, and in my opinion, been one of the reasons that we've been as successful as we've been so far.
I mean, it's not a great unknown secret that there were some personality problems, there were some suspensions issues. Do those things show up on Friday night as much as you think they show up on Friday night sometimes?
Unfortunately, they probably do.
They do.
I mean, I think in any program you're always going to have
Correct.
some little conflict that may come up, but if you can limit that, which, like I said, this group of seniors has certainly limited that, and it's helped us out.
How much does chemistry play a role on this team? I mean, they say it matters, but I think in high school football it matters more than you might think, because you don't have your athletes full time.
Sure.
They've still got a whole day of school, and some of them have jobs, et cetera, et cetera. It's not like college football where their commitment is just school and athletics, right? There's a lot more of a dynamic here, and in my argument, when Central Dauphin won their state title a few years back, they won not because they were better, but because they simply have better chemistry than anybody.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Sometimes the better teams that you see throughout the season aren't necessarily one or two individuals making everything happen, but the actual whole team is contributing, and I think that's a little bit of a factor of why we've been successful. I think, if you look around, there's players making positions all over the field, not just one or two players, making all the plays. So I think that really has, helped contribute to the success we've had.
All right, this is my last question. I'll let you ask a couple, Coach. I'll think of more, but I have some more. But I'm not going to make you name one. Give me two players by name that you can easily say, like, you know what, these two guys have made a difference at a level that I certainly am proud of, pleased with, but I certainly wasn't fully prepared to see this.
Well, I think Phil Overton, who you're going to talk to here in a little bit, is one of those guys. Phil's been a kid who, from his sophomore year, was a starting corner for us.
Right.
Was very successful. I think he had 6 interceptions as a sophomore.
Did he spend some time at wide receiver?
He was a wide receiver.
Yeah.
He's one of those, the coaches joke around, he can play any position on the field.
Football player.
He can kicker every once in a while. He thinks he can punt the ball every once in a while. But, no, he's, I expected good things from Phil, but to the level he's done has been pretty remarkable.
All right, that's one. I gave you another one because that's good. No, I always give you two because one's not fair.
All right. Let's see the other one. Gosh, I'm going to go with Braden Coe, who we talked about, one of those lineman positions that we needed filled in. He's a sophomore. Last year as a freshman, he was brought up, played a lot of JV football for us, and he was a kid that, to be honest with you, we weren't quite sure if he was the fit. There was a couple other guys that were kind of in the mix there. And each week he has progressed, pretty rapidly. Last Friday night against Hershey was probably one of his best games he's played. And, if we can keep him each week getting a little bit better and better, again, I think that's just going to help us in the long run.
Okay. You talked about your senior leadership, and it's a rare high school team that is successful without a great group of seniors. So I'm sure that's playing a huge role in what you're doing this year. What are some adjectives that you would use to describe the rest of the team? How would you classify this group as a whole?
Hardworking.
Okay.
And I think it's sometimes a cliche of good teams are hardworking, but this truly has been one of the hardest working groups we've had. Like I said, in the off season we challenged them a lot more than we had previously.
Not flashy. You don't want to use the term flashy.
No, not flashy. Not flashy. I don't like flashy.
I mean, I saw the Carlisle game. They aren't a flashy football team. They're not a flashy football team. We've talked about that.
Redland football is probably never going to be too flashy.
Well, I mean, it's just there's not 2 or 3 players that your eyes go to. There's no, I mean, you could see Phil's got some chops as a running back, but it's not like, whoa, that kid is like,
Sure.
Where's he been hiding? There's not, your quarterback's efficient, your quarterback makes the throws that you should complete. Completes. They just don't seem to. There's not a lot of flash, but it's just almost like it's that mind-numbing. They sort of grind you into the ground. They just beat you into the ground.
And what about your staff? You said it's your 4th year as a head coach.
Yep.
I imagine there's been some changes in staff.
Yeah,
over the
there's
4
been
years.
a few changes. Honestly, for the most part, we've remained pretty much intact from where we started. I think this past year we actually lost one of our assistant coaches is at Millersville now, helping out down there, which is great for him. He's been wanting to get into the college game. But we've been able to bring in some guys to replace him. We have Brendan Brown, who used to be the head coach at Northeastern, who was able to help us out this season. So it's always nice to have people who've been in the head coaching position a little bit that know what it's like, just to offer some guidance and to deal with kids in ways that they do best. So it's nice to have that cohesion each year, where it's not complete turnaround each year, and I think that's helped us a little bit too, as far as our schemes offensively and defensively.
Let's talk about one of your assistants in particular. What do you have to say about this? I believe he's a relative of yours?
He is a relative of mine. Okay. He is a relative of mine.
It's his dad.
Yeah, it is.
I'm just going to say it right in the... It's his dad. It's what I asked him the day he was hired.
Yeah.
Is your dad going to be on your staff?
Yeah.
Remember, that was the very first question I asked you when they announced. I called you up and they're like, "Chad's the head coach." I called him up and I'm like, "Is your dad going to be on your staff?" Because he was a head coach at Redland.
Yeah.
And he's been a football coach for more than 3 decades at that time.
Yeah.
At that time, it was more than 3 decades, approaching 4.
It's really been fun. I know he enjoys it. I think he enjoys kind of being able to sit back a little bit and relax, and not necessarily have as much pressure on him. But it's just a neat relationship we've been able to build, from not necessarily just the coach and the player. At one time I played for him, but now to actually be kind of on the same level there, and he has a lot of knowledge, and sometimes he rambles on and on and on.
He does love to chat.
I remember that.
It's been great. It really has.
So looking forward now, Coach, you still got to play McDevitt. You still got to play Lower Dauphin. Susquehanna's had some struggles, but they're still on your schedule. They're still in the they're in the future for it.
They can be flashy.
They can be flashy. Yeah, but I mean, what are some of the leaks that some of the holes you got to plug up? Where's the leaks that you think, without going in detail, but you can see them. You study the film.
Sure.
We got to be better at X, Y, and Z, and we're already good at X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I think offensively the running game's been pretty solid for us. As you talked about, we need to probably get a little bit more confidence in the passing game.
Downfield.
Yeah.
That's what I.
Even a little bit better in our play action. Our play action certainly is probably our bread and butter of the passing game. But we can always get better in that area. Defensively, again, I think we've been playing pretty well against the run. The pass, we need to work on a little bit. We haven't faced
too
much passing other than Carlisle, who obviously exploded against us there in that fourth quarter. But I think if we can really improve defensively in our pass defense, I think that's certainly going to help us as well.
Last question before you get out, and we're gonna ask Phil the same question. What did that last drive against Carlisle do to this football team?
And I'll be honest with you, I'm on the sideline, 4th down and 7 or whatever it was, and I see Garrett getting pressure. I didn't want to say that was it, but
it looked like that was it.
It looked like it was it, yes. And he made a great play, and then that kind of momentum kind of took over. And then Phil made a great play as well with Garrett scrambling. And, I think the kids understand that there's some pretty special kids that are out in the field that can make some plays. And it's not just one.
Right.
It's a few kids here and there that can really do some things. And if we do get down, we still have the ability to get back into games. So I hope they can take that with them.
I love you football coaches. I've always had great relationships with football coaches, but one thing you guys can't coach: confidence. You cannot coach confidence. You can hope to find it.
Sure.
You can lead your boys to the water and hope they drink, but you literally cannot coach confidence. And I would have to think that something like that in a game like that, where you had your hand on it, it was started to be snatched away from you, and you grabbed it in desperation for them.
I agree.
Feed something into a football team that you better start paying a little bit more attention to that team. Thanks, Coach.
Sure, thank you.
We appreciate you coming in.
You,
All right, we'll be back. Welcome back to 4th and Goal, presented by 4th Down Magazine, and this is the Explosive Sports Performance Player Profile. How about that?
Nice alliteration.
I'd like to welcome in number 18 in your Redland football program, at 5'10", 190-pound senior, the running back for the Patriots this year in 2014, Phil Overton. Phil, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Coach Miller, Thanks for joining us. By the way, I'm going to #1 golfer on the Redland golf team. He will be, if Coach lets him off practice Monday, participating in he can play in the morning, the Mid-Penn Golf Championships next week. #1 golfer from Redland will be participating, and will he have to be at football practice later that day? I don't know. We'll check and see what Coach says. But one of the keys this season to Redland being 4-0 is that they have found a running game. They have found a consistent running game. Phil's been a 3-year starter, played a lot of defense as a sophomore for the Patriots, played 2 ways last year, a little bit of wide receiver, a little bit of defensive back, one of the stronger defensive backs in their secondary, but this year he's emerged as a threat in the running game. Tell me about the adjustment. Have you always been a running back? Are you welcoming the position change and move to running back, and what's it been like for you?
Oh, well, yeah, ever since in midgets coming in, I was always a running back, and then switched to defensive back when I was a sophomore, and made receiver whenever I was there my junior year just to get the ball and make some plays, and I just always was a running back, always will be.
So let me ask you something. Coach talked about your offensive line, running backs, quarterbacks. It's pretty much their job, if they get interviewed and talk to media, to do what? What's the first thing you're supposed to do?
Talk about the line.
You're darn right. The first thing you got to do is talk about the line. But let's talk about the line. So you had 3 guys coming back in front of you. You were familiar with them. Can you tell the difference now through 4 weeks? I'm sure you could earlier in the season between where the experienced guys are and where the new guys were. Are you seeing less of a, I know I'm running behind the experienced guys and I know I'm running behind the guys that are a little bit of greenhorn? Can you see that gap evaporating between the guys with experience and the guys without?
Yeah, I really think that the 2 linemen coming in, they really stepped up and made some plays, and their experience now they're in, and they know what they're doing pretty good.
There's a relationship that is that's not talked about very much between a running back and the offensive line. You can kind of see what they're going to do, and they kind of know what you're going to do. Can you talk about, do you feel that, and what do they do that you like, and what do they expect, what do they know you're going to do that suits them as blockers?
I think that they know that I'm going to hit the hole where it should be and really cut off their block, and that's what I really feel whenever the guard pulls or whatever situation may be, that I know where they're going to kick out and where I need to cut up or go out depending on where they're going to be. And I think that really helps get to the second level.
I was just going to say, so that's part of your pre-snap. I'm assuming you know what all the guys up front are supposed to be doing every play, right? So you're taking in the offensive line and the defensive front, so you know where the hole's supposed to be every time when you step up there.
Yeah, I bust their chops whenever they miss a block, but I know next play they're going to be right back in there making the block that they can do. I know they're trying their best.
Are they down there to greet you? Well, not right at the same time, obviously, but when you score a touchdown, are they the first ones down there?
Yes, they're always congratulating me, giving me chest bumps.
Sure. I always told my guys that's the quickest way you're going to get on the highlight film, fellas. Get down there and hug the guy.
Yeah. See, way back when I was an offensive guard, when I played football, I was not running down there. I played both ways. I was like, good, you scored. I'm going to get my rest during the special teams break. You consider yourself more of a read or reaction type back? Do you know what I mean? There's a difference between being a reaction back and being a read back. Do you kind of consider yourself a little more patient, or do you like to get in there and then react based on what you're seeing?
I think more towards the beginning of the year, I was more of a get into the hole and read what I have to do. But now that I'm kind of starting to get the concept of zone and all the other things that are going on, I think I'm turning into more of a patient back and kind of a combination of both.
Well, it's your first time running as a high school varsity back. The game has to slow down. It has to have slowed down since week 1 to week 4. Yeah. Would you agree? So tell me about, you've been on this team for 3 years. Like I said, you're a 3-year starter. There has been some off-field issues, some problems with this team that disrupted the chemistry and frankly robbed Redland of what was obvious football talent, and they weren't able to meet expectations. You had to play inside that, function inside that. How much of that do you think affect what happens on Friday night, and how big of a difference is it this year that there doesn't seem to be anything except good vibrations rolling through?
I think it actually makes a great big impact, especially now that since our record shows it, and this year we're really more of a family together, and that's what the coaches preach. You always have to be with your guys on the field. Friday nights you're supposed to be a family together, and I think that really helps us in the long run.
And could you tell now, looking back, that probably didn't exist the majority of Friday nights, certainly last year and probably a little bit of the year before?
Yeah, sir. I feel like there's some like groups. Some people had chemistry, some people they were together, and then there's like another group where it was the same thing, but this year it's just one big. We all have the same goals in mind.
So I have two fun questions for you. One is, your coach is like one of the most laid-back individuals that probably coaches. Does he yell? Heard him yell?
I don't think he ever yelled before.
I've never seen him like yell or, you know, even chuck a clipboard or, you know, slam a headset, even so much that. Second thing is, I love to ask players this. All right, you're in the huddle. You're not going to describe the play for me. You're not going to tell me what is going to happen. But when you hear this sent in or see it signaled in more today, I want you to give to me by the numbers what your favorite play to hear called when it's your number and what it is. I just want you to bark it out like it's being told. Look in that camera and give it to us, what it is.
Favorite play.
Yeah, by the numbers, like, you know, red zip right, 69 jam. Whatever it is in your lingo, give it to me right in that camera.
I think it'll have to be 04 Reed. That's my favorite
Just
player.
simply 04 Reed.
04 Ace Gun 04 Reed.
Ace Gun 04 Reed. Phil Overton, the running back from the Redland Patriots, who are 4-0 entering week 5. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Good luck in Mid-Penns next week.
Thank you.
Don't beat my son. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back one final time. 4th and Goal presented by 4th Down Magazine. Coach Bart Miller, I'm Andy Shay. Let's take a look. It's week 5. We're going to hit the halfway point of the season. This is I'll call this a slobber knocker week. This is a good one. You know, you rarely get a week in high school football. I mean, I'm not afraid to say it. You rarely get a one like this, where you've got like 6 or 7 games that have meat on the bone. Usually it's 1 to 3. But when you got 6 or 7 like this, it's a really good week in high school football. Plenty of Mid-Penn excitement going around. Let's talk about first one. JV season's over for Camp Hill. It's time for them to start playing varsity football. They're going to travel to Milton Hershey, Henry Hershey Field. They're going to play the Spartans on Saturday night. 3-1 against 4-0. Coach, initial thoughts on that game?
Spartans are going to be all jacked up on Reese's peanut butter cups and
nice
almond bars. They're going to be
nice.
They're going to be ready to play.
Yeah.
You know what? It's the first time, like you said, Camp Hill's going to have some athletes. I think of the same caliber kids they got.
Yep.
Milton Hershey is deep. I mean, they can keep running guys out of that tunnel all night long.
I think the key to this game, Coach, to me is I'm going to go polar opposite of what you might think. I think Camp Hill's going to get some of theirs because they're that good to get a little bit of theirs. It's going to be whether or not Milton Hershey can score enough points and what is the Camp Hill defense made of, because we really don't know. But we're going to find out. All right, let's move on. Cumberland Valley Eagles, little electric football. That's what I call the wing tee. Electric football. They're going to invade the chat. No, they're not going to invade the chat. No. They're going to the Speedway. That's what we call it, the Speedway. Speed Ebersol Stadium, the Speedway.
Right.
Landis Field inside Speed Ebersol Stadium, the Speedway. They're going to play Central Dauphin East.
You can't play electric football at the Speedway.
You cannot play electric football at the Speedway.
It doesn't
CD
work.
East and Cumberland Valley, a couple of one-loss teams squaring off. Cumberland Valley's got some holes to fill offensively. The game, I look at this one, Cumberland Valley's weakness is their offense. CD East's strength is their defense. What gives in your mind?
I believe the Cumberland Valley offense is going to improve this week, and the CDE's defense is not going to get it done. I think Cumberland Valley wins a close one.
Yeah, no, I disagree with you. I'm taking East. All right, Harrisburg's reeling. They got a lot to clean up. There's a lot of mopping for them to do. There's a lot of water spilled on the floor. Execution-wise, talent-wise, they've got a lot of pieces. They're going to play Central Dauphin. Rams at Harrisburg Saturday afternoon, up on top of the end of Market Street.
You know, it's going to come down to can Coach Cal get these kids back and focused and ready to play on
Exactly.
Saturday.
Yeah.
If he does,
it's as simple as that.
It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, Coach nailed it. It is simple at that. This is a very intriguing Keystone Division game. Cedar Cliff and all of those points against Lower Dauphin, and it's just supremely solid, well-roundedness. That's the good way. They're not. Last year they were a defensive team. They're just very well-rounded. Cedar Cliff scoring points like crazy. They're chucking the ball all over the field. Jaden Denny's running crazy. Mm-hmm. What do you think about this one? I think it's a very intriguing game.
I do too. And again, it's like a strength versus a strength. I think the Lower Dauphin defense is pretty darn good. So
I know you like their offensive line too.
I do. But and we talked about that. But I defense wins the game.
To me, this is one of those flip it, call it heads or tails. I don't know. I think it's going to be a great game. Susquenita Township, here we go. They got some speed. But what else do they have? They're going to play Redland. We just had Phil Overton in, Coach Chad Weaver. They both admitted we're not a flashy football team. We just do what we do well. What are your thoughts about this one?
I like Redland. Again, I'm still waiting for Susquenita Township to put it together.
Yeah, they haven't put 4 quarters of football together yet. Very good point. And finally, let's go. This is your Colonial Division Championship game. Whoever wins this game is going to win the Colonial Division title. I know it's week 4 heading into week 5, but let's say it now. Greencastle Lantern Blue Devils are going to come out of the deeper portions of Franklin County. They're going to travel up the road into the near ends of Cumberland County. They're going to play the East Pennsboro Panthers. You know, East Penn always loses one of those games they shouldn't every year, Coach.
I'm not sure this is one they shouldn't lose.
I agree with you. I think Greencastle's the favorite in this game. I think East Penn's going to have to throw the football to be able to chase down Greencastle, because all Greencastle's going to want to do, you know what Chuck's going to do.
Sure.
He's going to hog the clock and hog and drain every minute off the clock, where you look up at the clock and you go, where'd the second quarter go? Yeah. And if that happens, Greencastle's going to win going away. All right, that's it, Coach. Thanks for your time. Coach Bart Miller, I'm Andy Shay. Thanks to Dave at Explosive Sports Performance for letting us work here. Get out to a high school football game Friday. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and check out our picks. For some reason, people like picks. I'm coming to get you. Thanks.